A 530 horsepower blade swallows a tree trunk wider than your shoulders in under 3 seconds. And that's the gentle machine. Panels get lifted by suction cups. An entire house gets craned onto its foundation in one afternoon. A furniture leg is born from the same chain that just leveled a forest. Watch until the last cut and the destroyer you met first turns out to be running the whole supply chain. Forget the chainsaw opening. Start with the deletion. A medium wood chipper sits in a Ute car park surrounded by what used to be everyone's living room decoration in December. Christmas trees, by the hundred, donated for charity recycling. The machine has a horizontal feed wheel, a drum carrying knives, and the patience of a hungry crocodile. A worker shoves a tree into the inlet, the rollers grab it, and 3 seconds later it leaves the discharge chute as pale wood flakes flying into a waiting truck bed. The tree didn't fall, it was deleted. Multiply that by several hundred, and the chip pile becomes a small hill. The chips go back out as landscaping cover. The cash raised goes to a local charity. Recycling is meant to be virtuous and dull. This version is virtuous and slightly terrifying, and you should keep your hand well away from the inlet. Now scale that up. A lot. A self-propelled chipper sits in a snowy clearing with an articulated crane folded on top of it like a praying mantis with arthritis. The crane unfolds, grapples a stack of logs the size of a small car, lifts them clean off the ground, and feeds the whole bundle into the drum without anyone leaving the cab. Chips fire out of a tall discharge chute and arc into a waiting trailer in a continuous beige rain. It runs through daylight, then keeps running through the night under work lamps because logs don't have a sleep schedule. The clever bit is the absences: a second machine, a separate loader, an extra crew on the ground. All eliminated, all in the cab. The forest gets emptied by what amounts to a very expensive Swiss Army knife on tracks, while the operator's coffee stays warm. Pull a chipper behind a 500 horsepower tractor and the maths changes again. Thousands of logs lie stacked in long, parallel rows across a field at dawn. The tractor positions, the chipper's hydraulic crane lifts a bundle, drops it into the drum, and the discharge cannon fills a parallel truck bed with chips on the move. Trucks rotate in and out, the tractor never stops, and by nightfall, the work lamps come on and the operation just keeps eating. Sleep is a luxury for the timber, not the operator. Chip storage piles end up taller than the shed roof beside them. Now meet the specialist case, a tracked wood chipper rated for logs up to 60 centimeters in diameter, with a 530 horsepower diesel and adjustable screens to control chip size. It's deployed against dead pine trees killed by pine wilt nematode, a disease that wipes out entire pine stands and leaves behind logs that must be destroyed before the next forest catches the infection. An excavator with a grapple feeds the chipper logs of mixed sizes. The aggressive in-feed teeth drag each log past the chipping knives, and pale chips fly out of the high discharge arm onto a pile that grows by the minute. The same machine appears in 3 settings: an outdoor field, a covered warehouse, and a quayside for export loading. Disease control through industrial shredding sounds like overkill. It is, in fact, the only thing that reliably contains a forest-wide outbreak before it reaches the next valley. Hardwood is where chippers stop being polite. Beech logs are dense, twisted, and unforgiving, the kind of timber that destroys cutting knives. A flagship chipper handles them on continuous feed, with a grapple truck loading and the chip stream filling a concrete-walled bay. Beech against carbide. Carbide wins, eventually. There is one machine this entire chain still needs, and it is the one most people already wrote off as the destroyer, not the provider. A tractor-mounted chipper looks like the same grinding, indiscriminate machine from the very start of this chain, and on the surface, it is. A hydraulic crane feeds whole trunks into the intake funnel. Internal blades reduce them to chips in seconds, and the chips blast out through a discharge chute. But watch where those chips actually land, and the entire purpose flips. A second tractor hauling a trailer drives alongside, catching the spray of material in real time, swapping out for a fresh trailer the instant one fills, because this is no longer waste removal. Every chip leaving that chute becomes raw feedstock for paper pulp, MDF board, biomass pellets, or direct fuel. Nothing in this chain actually goes to waste. It just changes which industry claims it. The biggest of the bunch swallows trees the size of telephone poles. A 450 horsepower tractor drives a chipper rated for trunks up to 90 centimeters across. Poplar trees, in this case, harvested at an agricultural school in France. The crane grabs whole trunks, not split logs, and feeds them in one piece. The drum doesn't even slow down. Chips fly out in a long arc and form a head-high pile beside the machine while students stand back watching their entire row of poplars convert into biomass over the course of an afternoon. 90 centimeters of trunk, gone in roughly the time it takes to read this sentence. And here's the part nobody mentions. The chipper costs more than most of the houses nearby and earns its money back in a single season of work like this one. That covers the heavy shredding end. But not every forestry job involves an entire tree to begin with. Forest clearing isn't always about turning trees into chips. A telehandler with a 25 meter boom reaches up to a high limb, a hydraulic shear head closes around it, and the cut piece descends gently with the boom rather than crashing down on a roof. Power, reach, precision, and a 90 meter safety perimeter. The next category goes a step further. Machines that don't even bother felling trees first. They grind them where they stand. A forestry mulcher head bolted to the end of an excavator boom is, on close inspection, a rotating drum studded with rows of carbide teeth spinning fast enough to vaporize small trees on contact. The operator pushes the head against a standing tree from the side, and the drum eats it from the bark inward, leaving a small heap of mulch where a sapling used to be. Larger excavators carry larger heads. On wheeled carriers, the same head clears brush along right-of-way corridors at walking speed. Bolt one onto a bulldozer, and it rides over the top of a pasture full of unwanted scrub, leaving a brown carpet of chipped fibre behind. Felling, limbing, hauling, all collapsed into one pass. The trick is power. A mulcher head only works when the hydraulic flow from the carrier can keep that drum spinning under load. Drop closer to the ground and you find a different family of machines. A flail mulcher pulled behind a 135 horsepower tractor has a rotor with 72 teeth and a compacting roller mounted above it. The roller pins everything down: brush, branches, even small trees, while the rotor below grinds the lot into mulch. The tractor reverses into the edge of a dense thicket and walks straight through it, leaving a clean strip of bare earth and chipped fibre. It also handles standing trunks. The roller bends a sapling flat to the ground, the teeth take it from the top down, and what was a young tree becomes a brown smear in the soil. The same tool grinds stumps from the side, taking off the visible portion below ground level. It's mowing, but for forests, and you absolutely do not want it near a power line. Inside city limits, big machines are useless. A boom lift, a chainsaw, and a length of climbing rope take down a tall tree section by section. Each cut piece dangles on a rope, swings clear of the roof below, and lowers to the ground in slow motion. Surgery, not demolition. Cleared logs have to land somewhere before they leave the region. At a city timber depot, large trunks lie stacked in long rows beside a static chipper with a tall infeed funnel. A mechanical claw arm picks up a single trunk, swings it horizontally, and drops it into the feed. The studded infeed roller drags the trunk in continuously. The drum knives convert it to chips, and the discharge pipe fires the chips directly into a truck bed waiting alongside. Meanwhile, a second machine works the depot, moving and restacking new log piles for the next round. The chipper itself never moves, but the speed at which it consumes the depot sets how soon the upstream clearing crews can drop another trailer. A whole forest, retired through one funnel. Not every part of the chain runs on diesel. A homeowner with a 4,000-pound hand winch and a 12-inch stump in his front yard does it the old way. Spade rings the stump to expose the roots. Axe and chainsaw cut the visible ones. The winch line runs through both snatch blocks back to the stump, a setup that triples the pulling force. 4 hours later, the stump lifts clean out. Mechanical advantage. When you can't afford the diesel, you borrow time and geometry instead. From a 530 horsepower chipper to a man with a steel cable, the goal stays the same. Get the wood out. Most people assume a logging truck just shows up and drives away with a full load. It does not. The truck arrives empty of help, carrying its own crane, and does the loading itself. A hydraulic arm folds out from behind the cab, swings into the stack of felled trunks, and starts filling the rear deck log by log. There is no separate loading machine standing by. The truck is the loading machine. Once the main deck sits full, the same arm shifts to the trailer behind it and repeats the process, stacking until the load reaches its legal limit, at which point the crane folds itself away like it was never there. Self-loading only solves half the problem, though. Get that truck to a terminal and an entirely different machine takes over, one that never leaves the ground. A material handler the size of a small building swings on its own turntable, dropping a claw the width of a doorway straight into the truck bed and lifting an entire bundle of trunks in one motion. Here's the part nobody mentions in the brochure. This thing has to unload a fully loaded semi in minutes, not hours, because there is always another truck idling behind it. That waiting truck is the bottleneck nobody talks about. A terminal that unloads slowly backs up every delivery behind it, so the real product this machine sells is not lifting power. It is speed under repetition, swing after swing, truck after truck, without a single wasted motion. Strip away the size and the brand, and a crane is still just a crane. But the operator's seat tells the real story. Here is where the job stops looking automatic and starts looking like an actual skill. The operator sits directly on the rotating boom itself, not in a cab on the ground, riding the machine through every swing so the grip stays precise even as the load shifts mid-air. One pass clears a cluster of 3 or 4 trunks from the pile, swings 90 degrees, and lowers them into the truck's front rack before circling back for the next batch. And somehow nothing ever falls off. Not every forest has room for a truck the size of a small house, which is exactly the gap this machine fills. A telescopic crane reaching just over 5 meters lifts loads up to 300 kilograms at full extension, mounted on an 8-wheel drive chassis that crawls over terrain a road truck would never survive. The same loading logic from the highway-grade trucks applies here, just shrunk down to fit where the big machines cannot go. It even gets tested empty for stability, because a top-heavy crane on uneven ground is how careers end early. Scale back even further, and the same job still has to happen, just with a tractor doing the work of a truck. A compact T25 hauls a purpose-built forest trailer fitted with its own hydraulic crane, gripping trunks straight off cleared agricultural land and stacking them onto the trailer bed for transport out. The terrain is rougher, the load smaller, but the sequence is identical. Lift, swing, stack, balance, repeat. And that repetition across 5 completely different machine sizes proves something the whole industry quietly depends on. The logic of loading wood barely changes. What changes is how small a machine can shrink and still do it. Delivering logs doesn't make usable wood. Every trunk still has to lose the layers nature gave it. By now, it no longer looks like a tree, but it's still nowhere near becoming something people actually use. And the reason starts with bark. A trunk arrives still wearing it, and that bark has to go before anything else can happen. Not for looks, but because bark traps dirt, and dirt destroys cutting blades fast. The log feeds onto a long roller conveyor toward a debarking head built to handle trunks up to 13 meters long, the standard length needed for utility poles. Once the trunk reaches the cutting station, a ring of chain-driven rollers clamps it tight to stop it spinning loose, while a rotating blade head shaves the rough outer layer away in a continuous pass. Here is the detail most people miss entirely. Removing bark does not just clean the surface, it strips away the grit that would otherwise grind down every blade downstream. Skip this step and every machine, after it wears out faster, cuts less precisely and costs more to run, which makes this unglamorous first stage one of the most expensive corners to cut in the entire process. Debarking gets a log clean. This next machine asks a harder question. What shape does that log actually need to become? Mounted directly onto a tractor's power takeoff, this unit handles 3 jobs in one pass: pointing, peeling, and cutting, without the trunk ever leaving the line. First, rotating discs taper one end into a sharp point built for driving stakes into the ground. Then rollers feed the trunk through a peeling stage that strips bark identically to the previous machine, just packaged into a tractor attachment instead of a standalone plant. Finally, a circular saw blade slices the trunk to length or splits it lengthwise depending on the order. 3 separate operations, 1 machine, 0 idle time between them. And that is the entire pitch for owning equipment like this instead of renting 3. The wood that comes out the other end is no longer raw material. It is a component with a job already decided. Even after becoming furniture or a building, the story of industrial wood still isn't over. Get here, and the payoff finally arrives. Everything before this was just preparation for one of 2 destinations, and the bigger one comes first. A finished house, built entirely from timber that started this journey as a debarked, bug-prone log, gets assembled indoors before it ever touches a foundation. Workers build complete structural frames inside a covered workshop, joining beams cut to exact dimensions, then crane large floor and wall panels into position while the whole module still sits under a roof. And here is the part that should genuinely surprise you. Vacuum lift systems carry entire wood panels through the air using nothing but suction cups, the same way someone might lift a pane of glass. Insulation gets sealed in, wiring and plumbing run through pre-cut channels, exterior cladding goes on, all before the structure ever leaves the factory floor. Once complete, a crane lifts the entire room-sized module onto a flatbed trailer, drives it to the actual building site, and lowers it directly onto a prepared foundation. What took weeks of on-site construction in traditional building gets compressed into a single afternoon of lifting and placing. This is the bottleneck the entire timber chain was built to solve. Getting a house erected and livable before the weather, the budget, or the client's patience runs out. Not every piece of finished wood is the size of a room, though. Some of it fits in the palm of your hand. A CNC bandsaw clamps a bundle of squared timber blanks together, feeds them through a continuously moving blade to cut a curved profile on one face, then rotates the bundle and repeats the cut on the opposite side. Same raw material, same debarking and milling steps from earlier acts, just scaled down to chair leg size instead of house frame size. What drops out the far end is a finished furniture component, contoured and ready, with 0 hand shaping involved. Even after becoming furniture or a building, the story of industrial wood still isn't over. Trace it from the start, and the pattern is impossible to miss. Every single machine in this chain exists because wood refuses to cooperate on its own terms. It will not load itself, will not strip its own bark, will not shape itself into a chair leg, and it certainly will not lift a finished house onto a foundation. Each machine you just watched solves exactly one stubborn refusal, nothing more. Stack them end to end, and a forest becomes furniture, fuel, and shelter, all without a single piece of timber doing anything voluntarily. So here's the actual question worth sitting with. Which one of these machines did you assume was the simple one, right up until you saw what it was actually doing? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to join us next time for another look inside large-scale industrial operations.